A new electric model to the Volkswagen lineup. This is the Volkswagen ID5. What is it? And here today in the special psychedelic or magic mushroom edition, yeah, I'm just kidding, this is still a camo paint because it's an early stage of this vehicle, and the ID5 is basically what the Audi Q4 e-tron Sportback is to the SUV. So Audi has the Q4 e-tron SUV and Sportback, VW has the ID4 and the ID5. So in this case then, electric SUV coupe. And here in the front grille you see this typical closed shape. LED or matrix LED then is an option or standard for the GTX model, because this is directly the GTX model, means all-wheel drive, 300 horsepower, around 6 seconds in the acceleration figure, 0 to 1 kilometers or 0 to 60 miles an hour. And here I also have the 21-inch wheels, the biggest wheels that are available. So you see everything that is in the front really resembles the ID4. They also have the same wheelbase, but the big difference is then here, and you can already see that although it has this camo shape here, this falling roofline, that's why it's also 3 centimeters or an inch longer than the ID4, but just this rear overhang and the strong shoulder area right here. So definitely a sportier, a stronger styling, especially in this area. But the interesting thing is that the boot volume is just the same, so it will basically more or less be as practical as the SUV version. We did experience that in the Q4 e-tron episode as well. You can tune into that one later. That means also on the interior you don't have so much compromises. So it will be more about the decision really, do you like this styling or do you rather like the classic SUV crossover styling? Here in the rear, by the way, also sporty accentuations for the GTX. And yeah, this is not then this typical hatch styling which we find with a lot of VW models, but here also with this rear spoiler. It cannot be seen that well then here in this camo paint, especially psychedelic camo paint, but you can already very well imagine here the light strip goes all the way across right here. And it will also feature the 77 kilowatt hour battery net. And that means, yeah, range something 400 kilometers or 250 miles if you want to be sure about this figure. So very interesting. They will have 2 different versions. This all-wheel drive version with the GTX, this new, GTI-like electric sporty line. And there will also be an entry-level version with 200 something horsepower that will just feature then the rear-wheel drive. What's also interesting, you see this shape here is better for the wind efficiency. So when the wind flows right here, the drag coefficient is actually better. So it will be a little bit more efficient than the ID4. So we can expect a little bit better range with the ID5 here than with the ID4. We cannot show you the interior today yet, but we can drive this thing. Welcome to our first driving lounge with the ID5 Gtx all-wheel drive. Let's test the power. Let's go. And that's 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour. At the beginning you heard all the luggage flying around in the car because you get so much boost. So instantaneous torque. That's of course pretty cool, and I'm not sure if you check the time code, should be something around 6 seconds, just as we experienced with the ID4 GTX. And since the wheelbase is the same, the driving experience is also more or less the same. The car is a little bit longer, but also as we experienced with the Audi Q4 e-tron, with the SUV and the Sportback, they definitely feel similar. The DCC here, the optional adaptive suspension, is giving me a little stiffer experience when I'm in that sport mode. And due to the low center of gravity, the car feels really, really agile, and definitely way more agile here as the electric version if you compare it, for example, to a Volkswagen Tiguan or something, because the center of gravity is so low, heavy batteries in the center and in the floor of the vehicle, and that makes the car sportier for its individual segment. So it's a lot of fun to drive. It definitely drives even more agile than it looks. And the steering is also very precise input. You can see it here when I'm going in this slalom here. So there's no dead zone angle or something. So every command is directly being transported. Do you need the all-wheel drive? Not necessarily. It's more about then the acceleration. Of course, you can just get more power to the ground. If you more seek the best efficiency and also lower price, then also the rear-wheel drive version only would do just fine. It will make a difference when you're, for example, accelerating on the motorway and want to take, like overtaking maneuver or something. Then you're better off with the all-wheel drive version, definitely, because you can just better do that. The augmented reality head-up display is also the one I can see here at the moment. Yeah, this is also a situation where the all-wheel drive comes really handy. I want to get on the road before the truck is arriving, and then I'm just, can apply more power. In the augmented reality head-up display, I can see some arrows being somewhat projected onto the road. That's of course a very helpful feature. And on the brakes, the way is always that first the recuperation is being used, and in this situation here, traffic light turned to red, then also the real brakes are being used. But most of the time, like 90% of all situations, just the recuperation is being used, and that doesn't matter if you use the same, just the brake pedal, or if you put it here to the B mode. We can switch it here in the switch gear, so D or B. Usually when I'm in the electric vehicles, I tend to drive in the B modes, in the higher recuperation modes, because when you lift your foot off the throttle, in most situations you do want to decelerate, and then it already begins when you switch from the throttle pedal to the brake pedal. Then the car is already slowing down a little bit, and that's actually, to me, also some kind of a safety feature, definitely. As for the visibility, we do have some stickers all around the vehicle. You see it is a little bit more limited than in the ID4, but it doesn't make the biggest difference actually. The rear window is a little bit smaller, but again, that's not the biggest difference, so that shouldn't be of concern. And since the luggage space won't also be so much different, we saw that also in the Q4 e-tron SUV versus Sportback video. The thing here is also just the decision between, do you want to spend a little bit more money, but you can also spec an ID4 higher, of course. It's more about that styling here, and to me it's always that the exterior of a vehicle somehow also affects the driving experience, because when you're driving in a sporty looking vehicle, you also feel a little bit sportier when driving inside. That might be something really subjective, but to me it's always the case. Here now in the B mode, by the way, when I get off the throttle, here we have more deceleration. It is not the strongest recuperation we, for example, know from Tesla or something, but in general, the German manufacturers, when they do their EV cars, so they rather go on this rolling philosophy. Let the car roll, be as efficient as possible, and then do recuperation with the brake pedal, for example, whereas Tesla is more like one pedal feeling and that's it. So in most situations you can still have one pedal feeling here when you're in this B mode, but it's not the strongest recuperation. Then the stronger one would then be once again available with the brake pedal. Noise insulation, by the way, is very good. So here at the moment driving 70 kilometers an hour, so some 40 miles an hour or something, and you don't hear too much. Now acceleration up to 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, and still there are any disturbing wind noise or something. This is still a prototype vehicle, so from time to time there can be something which is not in the final stage, but driving wise, from the whole chassis, from the insulation and so on, it doesn't make any negative impression that it would be a prototype vehicle or something. So once again, good agile feeling, and due to this special form of the dashboard, the windshield and so on, you cannot see so much from that at the moment, because it's actually restricted by Volkswagen. We cannot show too much from that one yet. We'll do that at a later stage. But you once again get this kind of traveling feeling. You do have a van-like atmosphere, but I think that's also the thing about both the ID4 and here the ID5. You have a van-like styling on the outside, also a styling on the inside, with the wide dashboard, but at the same time it has not a MPV driving feeling, because it has this sportier touch, and I think that's an attractive thing when you think about going for the EV version, because you just indeed get more driving fun. As for the range, we cannot test this car for too long today, but so far our experience is that you can, when you use it in a normal way, not with any efficient special driving, you can be sure that you can score some 400 kilometers or 250 miles. The official figures are a little bit higher, and you can reach better figures definitely if you, for example, like drive 80 kilometers and set it cruise control or something, or if you just do city driving and always use recuperation and so on. So overall, once again, a pleasant driving experience. The seats here also hold me quite tight. They have the microfiber surface, and also once again this this integrated styling, standard and also for the GTX model, and also still with a quite plush head restraint here. So they deliver a good compromise of comfort and coziness at the same time. If you ask me, Audi Q4 e-tron versus the we have the SUV in the Sportback there, or here the ID4 or the ID5 then, which we're in here today. The question is, to me, a little bit, of course, exterior styling. Driving-wise, they do not differ that much indeed, because they use the same chassis and technology and so on and so on. The biggest difference to me is definitely the user interface, where you have more, especially like for the climate unit, more physical buttons still for the Audi. That would speak for the Audi. The pricing itself, of course, you can, you land up in about 3,000–4,000 euros difference in favor of the VW. And then, of course, it depends on special leasing deals or something, where the VW dealers are often a little bit more generous than the Audi dealers. So it can be that you pay way less money for this one here instead of the Audi. That might also be an argument for that. Recently, we've also driven the Ioniq 5, which also, it goes in this hatch crossover direction. It also has a very sporty and fun driving experience. It has the better charging technology, so it charges faster. That is the main difference. The infotainment system isn't, that convincing with either models, so that's not the biggest difference. But the interior concept is definitely totally different. So what we see here with the ID5 is once again a rather, let's say, it's an interior concept where you can get along with quite easily, because it's not something completely different. It reminds us also of the so far combustion engine models, just in this next evolutionary step, for example. Once again, off the brakes, off the throttle. Yeah, I think the deceleration is okay, but again, it's not 100% one pedal feeling. Oh, there's this tractor we have to overtake soon. Let's see if that goes faster with the all-wheel drive. So we find a safe spot. Yeah, for cases like these, it's of course good to have a little bit. What's he doing? I want to prevent us from overtaking, obviously. Ah, there's a cyclist. Interesting. Yeah, you can't see that, so it needs to be assistance system for there are like this night vision assistance. Then also needs to be ultrasonic vision or something. That would be good. So now we go. Yeah, and then in these situations, really good, and also actually a safety thing to have a little bit more power. So if you have the discussion at home, do we go for rear drive or do we get the GTX? Then you can say as a good argument at the family table is for safety situations like these, we need to overtake a little bit better, and therefore we really need to go for the GTX model. So that's my tip then for you today. Yeah, overall, once again, good all-rounder experience, and most fun thing to do for you right now is to tune into our ID4 GTX episode, and also to the episode Audi Q4 e-tron SUV versus Sportback. See you there.